You're listening to Inclusive AF with Jackye Clayton and Katee Van Horn.
Woo woo. Hey y'all. Welcome back to the Inclusive AF podcast. I'm Katee Van Horn.
And I'm Jackye Clayton. And
Woo, woo.
today, listen,
I can't woot woot you.
What?
I can't woot woot you.
You can woot woot me.
Okay. Sorry. Go.
I'm just freaking out because why every week it seems like we're going to do something fun.
No, not right now.
Why?
No.
I mean, I'm Jackye, and we're going to dive into a topic that often gets misrepresented so freaking bad and politicized in the stupidest way: the economic contributions of undocumented workers.
That's right. We talked about folks being deported to an Salvadorian jail a few weeks ago. And now we're going to talk about facts, crazy idea, facts, data, and really talking about, what's the whole deal with undocumented immigrants and what are the numbers behind it that, the myth of, oh, they don't pay any taxes, so they need to go.
That's right. Oh, wait a minute.
Oh, wait, there's more.
Why don't we jump in? It'll be the shortest episode ever. Wait a minute.
And the end. No, so there are about $10.9 million, $10.9 million. No, there's about 10.9 million undocumented workers in the US, living in the US, working every day in the US. They're not sitting on the sidelines. They're not, bleeding off of Social Security. They don't get Social Security. They don't have access to Social Security. But what they are doing is working, paying taxes, and spending money.
Exactly. Like, can we just let people know, because they don't talk about it? Undocumented folks pay taxes. Like, they're encouraged to pay taxes to show that they care about the United States. And in 2022, they contributed how much, do you think?
Well, I already know the answer, so I can't answer. I'm going to say,
yeah, don't see 96.7 billion in total taxes. That's federal, payroll, state, local combined.
And that was 96.7 billion with a B, folks.
That's right. That 10 million was nothing.
No, right. And that's the thing. It's a lot of money. And they don't, doing that, paying those taxes doesn't qualify them for welfare, for, like I said, Social Security. So they are supporting our systems and basically getting nothing in return. That's the wild part. That's the part that, like, people, again, just don't understand. They think that all these undocumented immigrants are, and, they're not calling them that, they're calling them something else, but that these folks are just leeching off of our economy, which is not the case.
No, it makes me nauseous. Like, it literally makes me nauseous because they don't talk about that when they talk about throwing people back, right? Like, it is disgusting to know that in 40 states, undocumented immigrants pay a higher effective state and local tax rate than the top 1% of earners, and they don't get the benefits. So why is no one talking about that right now? Besides us, again.
Well, we are. And I hope that all of our listeners are truly paying attention to this episode, because I think, this is one of those, when you get the information, when you get the facts, this is when you can actually make better informed decisions and have better conversations about some of the current events that are happening that, we talked about in the episode on the El Salvadorian prisons. But
which, by the way, they still haven't gotten that dude back.
No, they have not. And that's the part that's really scary. But, I think let's talk about how this happens and, like, where they're actually working. And, again, this is the part that people don't want to think about, because they're actually extremely essential to our everyday life, and they keep our lives running.
We've been, but it's not like we don't know. That's the part that's disturbing, right? Like, we've talked about it. We've seen the strikes. We know it's happened in grapes and in tomatoes. Like, that's the agriculture part, but that's actually 36.1% of that workforce. If you're talking about construction, it's like 20%. Cooks and food prep, 22.6%. Like these roles literally keep our lives running.
And again, I
Go
think
tell the farmers that
yeah,
we're not.
I think this is, a lot of times people think about the historical like migrant workers who came up to pick whatever vegetables or whatever citrus or whatever was happening back in the, 50s, 60s, 70s. But these are people that are literally keeping us housed with their construction,
Right.
and they're building, the brick and mortar stores, things like that. And if you have not been in a restaurant in the last, I don't know, 75 years, let's be very
Right.
clear, 90% of the kitchens are run by Hispanic and unfortunately undocumented a lot of times, but they still are able, again, to pay um, their taxes through the ITIN system or ITIN system. But anyhow, these are not, the niche roles. These aren't something fancy, but they are the backbone of how we eat, how we build, how we live. And they're not taking jobs. And that's just not reflected in the actual data and what is truly happening.
And to be fair, like I'm in Texas, Katee is in Arizona. So we may see a lot of the Hispanic population, but then you look in other places in California, a huge Asian and Filipino, like
Yes.
people from all over the world, and you just don't know what industries. And these are the ones that we see that we know about, right? Because
Yep.
there are other roles that there are people that we don't hear about, that we don't see. And like you said, like they're not taking any jobs. If anything, they're filling jobs that aren't being filled. We've been talking about the labor shortage forever. We already know that there is a labor shortage. We've always been looking. That was how we started talking about so much diversity in recruiting and talent acquisition, because the workforce has been really small and we can't do it without these people. Now we're going to have full industries that are going to be worse off.
Absolutely. And then I think we can even zoom out a bit and look at the bigger picture. When we talk about spending, the spending power of undocumented immigrants, this is where the numbers get, again, they're huge, again, because those households that have undocumented immigrants had about 299 billion, again, billion with a B, in spending power in 2023. That's again a lot of economic activity. That's a lot of money into our economy. So almost $300 billion that they're bringing to the economy.
Mm-mm. I mean, I get frustrated because I know that I get mad when people say, oh, they're stealing jobs, but these jobs are not going to get filled. And now, if they're not here to have those jobs, they're not spending any money. So now those businesses aren't supported. And it's just a ripple effect, because if you spend the money, then you're supporting the economy, just like everyone else.
Absolutely. And I think that's also inflation has been such a key topic, and everyone's been talking about inflation for a while. And when you are able to keep the supply chains going, which is one of the other things that these undocumented immigrants are able to help with, that's the supply chain. It's all connected. And, it's one of those things that we can keep inflation lower by continuing some of these industries and making these industries supply chain work. Again, going back to construction as an example, when we have people that are able to use the supplies that are being made by companies, lumber, all these different things, this is how we keep it all connected. And this is why it's really, really critical.
But to be clear, obviously nobody cares about inflation right now. I don't know if you've been watching, because we all know, and nobody's doing anything about it. But
Yeah, it doesn't seem to
just
be.
for funsies,
Yeah.
let's just talk about if they were removed. The Peterson Institute found that deporting large numbers of undocumented immigrants could shrink the US GDP up to 1.6%.
Which that's hundreds of billions of dollars. Like, I think that's the thing that people
Right.
don't understand. Like, it sounds, oh, 1.6%. Oh, that sounds like not a big deal. But if you remove that type of input and expect everything to be fine, guess what, folks? It's not going to be fine. It's going to be very far from fine, actually. And that's, I think, the part that is is really forgotten. It's just economically, this is stupid. The end. Now we can wrap up the episode.
I mean, it's not, we're throwing the numbers out there because we really, I don't know why we still think that giving people facts is going to be helpful, but
Yes.
okay, throw the
It
numbers
is.
out, right? What about just the dignity of people? I mean, these are still people. At the end of the day, that's why it's like so insulting of not recognizing these people as humans, as people with families that have the ability to contribute, right? Like, even while facing discrimination, instability, and legal uncertainty, and they're still paying into the system that they know isn't going to support them and potentially send them somewhere else, wherever. I mean, I used to think they used to tell us that they would send these people back to their home countries, and now we know they can just send them wherever they want.
Exactly. And I think this is also, this podcast, we talk about being inclusive as fuck. That's what the AF does.
Ooh, Katie
That's
said
what
that.
the AF. I think that's the first time I've said the F word on this podcast. Now, for those who know me outside of the podcast, that's a word I use in my daily life as an adjective, a noun, a pronoun.
Like flower in our house.
Yeah. But that being said, I think this is, one of the ways that people discriminate and use bias and use some of these different tools is by creating an environment where people are dehumanized. They
Right.
call them illegal aliens, aliens being, this body of people, this inhumane body of people. And it's easier to say, we don't like that, or we don't like that group of people, because you are dehumanizing them, because it's a lot easier to dislike a group versus a person that that you go see at your corner market or your corner restaurant every week. That's the type of thing. This is where, we recognize that people are valuable and worthy of rights. They're worthy of protections. They're worthy of having a voice at the table as they contribute to our table, and, to the economy.
That was cute with the tables. But,
Yeah.
we know it's like racialized. And that's unfortunately part of why so many people were okay with it. Like they were like, oh, it's black and brown. But P.S. in the last couple of weeks, I mean, none of this is funny.
No.
But it was kind of funny watching the girl from Canada that got sent to prison because there was a visa thing. It's not funny. But people are like, oh, you mean everybody who's not American? Like,
Oh, no, no, no. I'm sorry, Jackye. No, 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 no. Let me be very clear. He has said he is not opposed to sending US citizens to the El Salvadorian jail if needed. And again,
yes,
we can
like,
laugh at that because it sounds completely
it's
bananas, but guess
ridiculous
what?
until it happens.
Yeah, until it happens. And that's the thing, is that this is, yeah, I agree. It's being racialized.
It's racialized, but it's also like it's radicalized. Like this is chaos. Like
Mhm.
the way that undocumented immigrants are being treated, it is different the way that they're from, what the places that they're from, on how they're being treated.
Right.
And part of it is, again, I feel like if we could start calling these people humans, maybe we would look at it a little bit different.
100%. I think that's the piece. This is completely unethical and it's hypocritical, because I think the other part is, I just mentioned this, your corner restaurant. Uh, If you are not in support of having immigrants move into this country and having some sort of immigration reform that makes sense, then guess what? You shouldn't be able to eat the food that they pick.
That's right.
You shouldn't be
Like,
able to go to the restaurants that they own that
right.
that are great food. You shouldn't be able to benefit off their backs if you are dehumanizing them. Period.
Right. Right. I mean, and if you are in leadership in HR, you need to start looking at your own practices.
Absolutely.
Who's doing the invisible labor as a benefit? Like really start looking at real questions and take responsibility. Because again, we talk about these people being hidden. They're hidden in plain sight.
Yeah,
People know what's going on.
absolutely. And I think that's the piece. It's, you know, if we want fair immigration reform, if we want to actually create voices and show voices, I think we also need to think about how we're supporting the businesses, how we're talking to our politicians. If you at this point in time do not know how to get a hold of your local politicians, please, we will put a link in the show notes that shares where you can look that up, where you can contact your local politicians, your local representatives, because I think that's the part, is that we need to see these people as pawns. They are being dehumanized. They are being used as pawns in a very scary game. And we need to start stopping that and really letting folks know this is not okay. And, you know, of all of the things that we talk about on this podcast, of all of the things that are going on, I think that we are just at the tip of the iceberg of all of the stuff that is going to go sideways. You know, every day I think we're seeing stuff that is getting worse and worse. And as, you know, as we look at this stuff, we need to be voicing our opinion to our politicians and getting them to move on these things and say, yeah, it's not okay. Like, to your point, no one cares. Well, if we start asking them and telling them this is not okay with us, they're going to have to start caring. If we stop voting them out of office because they're not doing what we want them to do, then we'll be in a much better place. But
I mean, I just feel like this just kind of is a great segue. I know we're doing things a little bit different, but this is not the 90s, y'all. Like, this is not where there's a difference of opinion and that we still treat people with any amount of dignity at all whatsoever. It's
yeah,
literally going about against the laws that are already in place. You know, like, I've been really frustrated. And part of the things, I know this is a little bit different. We're trying to pack so much in because there's so much going on a regular basis. But this week, I really started digging back in thinking about DEI and HR, what's happening there, because you should know what the policies that are going on. And there are so many. I know it feels like the world is on fire. You're not wrong. And you're fully not imagining that it is hysteria and chaos.
oh, well, yeah, I think that's the perfect way to put it. It's everything's on fire right now, literally. But that's again part of the chaos that's being created on purpose. And you know, a lot of our episodes in the past, we have tried to keep it lighter. And, you know, I think that's one of the things that we are known for on this podcast. But I think the other part is we are angry. We are frustrated because, you know, you have the EEOC gaslighting us. You have corporate retreats that are disguised as culture strategy when no one is actually paying attention to DEI anymore. And then these trash executive orders aimed at federal workers, all of these different things, we have to pivot. And so, we're tired. I know everyone else is tired and confused and being told, you know, don't worry, just be quiet, everything's going to be fine. This won't impact you, but it is. It's impacting all of us. And I think that's the piece that people need to know.
You're right. And we've always focused, we're in HR, but if you're here, you're in the community, right? It's not just about DEI or
Yeah.
HR nerds. Like, this is for anyone who's felt silenced at work or for anyone who gives a damn and got punished for it. And it's scary right now.
Yeah. And that's the thing. We want to send a message and we want to make sure everyone hears this. We see you, we hear you, and we're trying to break down all of these conversations with our passion and love that we have around it, but also with that fire of we have got to start taking action. And we want to also have receipts. We want to have data. We want to show folks this is what is actually happening. And, you know, we're going to break down our segments. You know, we just started off with a topic, but we're really going to break it down into three pieces. It's those mic drop moments, a whole lot of truth, and then like kind of let's get into it. Let's, you know, let's see what's next. So, Jackye, tell us.
Yeah. Well, I think, in thinking about it, so many people, of course, personally feel affected because of what's going on with DEI, but it's not about losing a program, right? It's not about, oh, we don't get to celebrate Black History Month anymore. Like, we are fully losing protection and we're having to talk about it. And so I wanted to start a segment because there's so much going on. Maybe we can kind of capsulize it all together and start kicking it into what the actual AF. And this week's What the Actual AF is going to be brought to you by the letters E, E, O, and C. And a healthy dose of performative patriotism.
Mhm.
Now, the EEOC, the agency literally tasked with protecting workers from discrimination, is out here saying that diversity is the new discrimination.
And that's right. So the Trump appointed acting chair of the EEOC, Andrea Lucas,
No.
someone appointed by Trump that we don't like. They sent out letters to 20 major law firms, and we discussed this kind of briefly in one of our prior episodes, but basically telling them that their diversity, equity, and inclusion programs might be, wait for it, Jackye, it might be illegal.
Illegal, y'all. Not bribery. We're not worried about insider trading. I don't know if that sounds familiar from this week. Not about union busting, but DEI. Like, apparently, mentoring a first generation Black law student or recruiting from an HBCU is a threat to democracy.
And to turn up the heat, like this is the thing that there are 12 Republican state attorney generals jumping in with their own letters demanding these same firms hand over DEI hiring data by April 15. So I will give a shout out to the Texas AG, Ken Patterson. So, you know, he's really the best at this.
Mess up all the names, by the way. We should just call them all. No.
Ken Paxton, what did I say? Did I not call him by the right name?
Yeah, Patterson.
Whatever. Again, I don't like them. I don't like them. I'm not pronouncing their name right. That's my new. So Ken Paxton, he called DEI un-American ideology. And so I just want to clarify that our special friend Ken Paxton is under investigation for securities fraud. So
Yeah.
so again, this is the irony of the character of these folks, these morals of these folks of out of the right side of my mouth, I'm going to call DEI un-American ideology. Out of the left side, I'm under investigation for securities fraud.
Right, because that's American, apparently.
American. Totally fine. Again, after this week, yes, it totally is.
Yeah, yes. So let's pause on that. You know, I'm a Black woman in Texas, and I'm telling you right now, DEI didn't make the workplace un-American. You know, what is un-American is telling marginalized people that they're the problem when asking for equal pay, or women asking for a seat at the table and being told that you're being too loud. Like, that shouldn't be American. It's like these people didn't even read the book. Like, I don't understand.
No.
Why do people feel like they're native? They're not even from here. Like, it's really frustrating. You ain't even from here. You don't even get to make it up. Like, there was people here more than 250 years ago.
Well, and I think this is the other part. I'm just going to these letters. This is the part that's also scary. Is they want detailed records. They want to know race, sex, any DEI related training or events attended by employees. They want to get a list of all the staff that has joined any Black affinity group, women in law roundtables, pride events. That's not oversight. That's surveillance. And that is scary.
That's un-American. That's the scariest part. There was a time when we would have called that un-American. But now it's like freaking Big Brother meets McCarthyism with a DEI twist. It's like Black Mirror, which, by the way, came out this week, but that's another show.
I can't watch it. It seems too scary, but please go.
It is a little scary. But I mean, it's really more science fiction. It's like so close to what's really going on. But it feels like if there was subpoenas in Black Mirror, it would be closer to what we're experiencing right now. Otherwise, it's very similar.
You know, and I think this is where we go is really about that inclusion piece and this this war that is now being waged against inclusion. So we're not talking about diversity. We're not talking about equity. We're talking about, again, that seat at the table. And, the USDA recently axed 1,176 training courses in one fell swoop. And those training courses were everything from anti-harassment, because somehow that's woke, veteran engagement, I guess that's also woke, conflict resolution, too woke.
Don't
So
do
all of
that.
those things that are basically like how to not be an asshole at work,
Right.
too woke.
They also said that's why they sent that guy who was like pro-Palestinian. They said that's anti-Semitic. Like that's all it takes by saying that. It's like that's not actually how it works. And there's a anti-Semitic group that they just put into place. I think it's called the Rachel something. There's
Okay.
no Jewish people on the committee, by the
Oh,
way.
well, that makes sense.
Right. And they said that the Jewish people aren't doing their job in protecting anti-Semitism. So the people, that same group that came out with that 2025 are doing this to try to help people. I mean, there's even, this is, yeah, it's so bad that we have something that we would, again, we would consider this American, right? It's a Veterans Day training called Our Story. That's too woke. So what kind of country cancels respect for veterans in the name of protecting values for a country?
Well, I think this is, it's the order from 47, 45, whatever we want to call them at this point, is, it's framing it as defending women. And, these different executive orders, all of them they're trying to like twist it into, oh, we did this to protect. So, there's we're going to defend women. So we're going to do an executive order so that transgender women cannot participate in sports, and transgender women cannot, do different things. That's somehow defending women. We don't need to be defended against transgender women. We need to be defended against men who are making decisions about our bodies. And,
The
they're,
rapist that's in office is
yes,
it that have
yeah.
women's rights in mind?
Yeah, and that's they've slashed like sexual harassment trainings or prevention trainings. So like those are the other things. It's let me defend the house by burning it down. Like that's just there's no logic to it at all.
That's what's so frustrating. There's so many things that come up, and I'm like, what you're talking about, we would have covered with the DEI training. Like we would have talked about protecting women. Like we would have talked about protecting veterans. But instead, you think that, you're doing something that is American, but when you cut these programs, you're not removing politics from the workplace. You're removing protection. Like you're removing community. You are removing dignity and making people feel like trash.
Yep, absolutely. So let's recap real quick. It's the EEOC is punishing firms for mentoring marginalized law students. The USDA is cutting equity training programs and calling it patriotism. And the people driving this, the same ones that scream cancel culture while literally canceling culture. So this is this fake patriotism that's really basically canceling culture and canceling history and canceling groups of individuals. These are the folks that are actually driving this.
That's right. So when the agency in charge of equal opportunity declares war on inclusion and harassment training is cut in the name of defending women, we have entered upside down America. What the actual AF? I can't take it.
I don't think you could say what the actual AF.
I don't think
I
you
think it
can.
has to be what the actual F.
Ah.
Because you're saying actual, right?
Yeah, we are.
All right. Sorry, folks. We're going to get this right. We will know our name.
We're saying what the actual as fuck.
I think we're at like episode 150-ish here or there, like around that number. One day we're going to know how to use our name correctly.
Right.
But all right. So let's turn now to corporate chaos, where we are in corporate America. And, the equity efforts that are melting faster than a Zoom background under bad lighting. That's my analogy today, Um, yeah.
We're gonna get in trouble. We forgot our backgrounds.
Well, it's okay. I actually just thought that same thing as I'm saying those words. I'm like, oh, we're gonna get in trouble because to our producer, we apologize in advance for not doing what we're supposed to do and not following the rules. But we are going to focus on calling out boldface backtracking that's happening across industries and talk about kind of what this means.
Right. Like, let's start with IBM. Like, I'm really, like, I feel personal to this because, that's why where my dad worked before he became a pastor, all of that. He was one of the first Black engineers. And IBM literally touted DEI like they invented it. It was one of the first things that we saw was including other people. Now they're ditching diversity goals. They've dissolved their internal DEI councils and they started using language like inherent tensions in practicing inclusion. Say that in plain English. Y'all got scared, so you gave up.
100%. And and I think also that memo, it read like a hostage note, like something that legal wrote to be like,
Right.
let's say the words so that we don't get sued later, but also not hiding it. Like, you know, they had a judge that said that reverse discrimination lawsuits could move forward. And it was filed by a male executive who claimed IBM's DEI goals cost him his job. So we have a judge that said there is such a thing as reverse discrimination. And so because of that, IBM pushed pause on everything. It's like watching, your best friend backpedal during a spin class, which you shouldn't do, just to be clear, if you've ever been to a spin class. I personally don't love spin, but I've been to a spin class and going backwards doesn't help you at all. It doesn't get you out of the class faster.
And it doesn't tick the numbers off either.
No. Mm-mm.
Here's the thing. The program that triggered the lawsuit was about incentivizing managers to diversify hiring, not quotas, just recognizing good work. But
Right.
now DEI leaders are being ghosted like that bad Tinder date after one mention of equity. Just poof.
I feel like a bad Tinder date could result in a lot of bad things. So I think that's a piece that people need to, like, for all those that are single out there, don't use
Yeah,
Tinder. Just that's a bad idea.
that's right.
Yeah. So that's my sidebar PSA for the day.
I like it.
Okay. And let's be clear, it's not just IBM. IBM, is very well known, as you said. Like, I think anyone listening to this podcast, anyone in the world can say, I know someone who worked at IBM or does work at IBM. But there's also Adobe is scrapping their hiring targets.
Yep.
Constellation Brands renamed their entire DEI department to inclusive culture and walked away from supplier diversity commitments. So again, supplier diversity commitments basically means we are spreading the wealth, and it's not just going to our friends that are just like us. It's going to different vendors. It's really diversifying who you're getting all of your items from, whatever that might be. And then JP Morgan, which I've said, wow, I was proud of them because they were really sticking to their guns. Jamie Dimon went on and, said all the good things. And
Yeah.
and now they're saying, we're just going to change the name so people stop looking. And so they dropped equity from DEI entirely. I think they're now doing DOI or something like that. I don't even know, but it's weird.
I mean, we've talked about this before. Like, if you were really doing the work, it wouldn't be that easy to just erase, right? Like, it would already be part of the culture. It just reminds me of when The Bachelor cast its first Black lead, and then that season got fumbled really bad, and then the host had to step down.
Mhm.
Like, that's what corporate America feels like right now with DEI. Like, they did it for optics. And then when things got real and they actually had to like get into it, it happened exactly the way that we knew, all of us professionals knew it would happen. But it just like freaked people out.
Well, that's the part that I think is so scary, is that this is literally a fear we're driving things out of fear. Like Target, they pulled all their Pride merch after a handful of TikTok videos and threats from conservative groups happened. And really, by pulling that merchandise and by pulling those different vendors, what they really said to marginalized communities was, you're not for us. You shouldn't be here. You're not allowed at our table. And, this is exactly where Target stands. And to be clear, it's not on aisle 5.
That's right. I mean, and the numbers are showing, like, people aren't shopping there. The numbers haven't flipped where people are like, oh, I'm going to shop there now because you got rid of DEI. Like, the opposite is happening. And the world is watching, right? We saw you launching those things. And now people are watching you abandon supporting your employees. Like, we know that DEI isn't seasonal. This is structural.
Absolutely. And, let's talk about real numbers. So, Axios did report the DEI mentions in earnings calls dropped 82% since 2021. And that's not market correction. That's ghosting, mass ghosting.
Right. I mean, these rollbacks, like, of course, we know that mostly hit the people in DEI, like whole teams were gutted. And the people who built these strategies from scratch were told we're sunsetting this work. And if you've ever heard the phrase sunsetting in an initiative, it's corporate for we're killing this thing with kindness.
Absolutely. Yeah. And here's the part that makes me happy though. Gen Z, Gen Z, Gen Z, Gen Z, they're not backing down. They're watching. They're asking in interviews, what are your values? What did you do when DEI got hard? If the answer is we changed the name, don't expect your Glassdoor score to survive. So, I think this is something, we need to also be thoughtful about is when we are changing this without actually really changing it, we need to be aware of that. So,
I mean, I know we were going to go into our third piece. I feel like I want to save it for another episode because we've gone so long, but I am so glad. I know it's a little bit different than our format. We've been kind of digging in. We didn't want to talk and have just people talking about their existing programs. We wanted to talk about what the impact was on these existing programs. We will continue to play with this. We're trying to learn it as we go along, right?
absolutely. And I think the piece that is really critical to remember, and Jackye, I know that you've said this before and we'll both continue to say it, but if your company's commitment to equity can't survive political pressure or a lawsuit threat, it was never a commitment. It was
Right.
performative. It was convenient. It was something to make you look good. And that's the part that the wrap up from this episode in my mind is get your head on straight, corporations, because this isn't going away.
These are
And
real people.
these are real
real lives.
that work for you today
That's
that now
right.
feel like you do not value them at all.
Right.
So anyhow, Jackye, do you have one thing? That was my one thing is basically, yeah, don't be performative.
I'll write this down. It was the first time Katie went first. I want to say, no, I just want people to be thoughtful in working with each other because people are scared. I mean, we thought we were scared before, but this is really terrifying and we never know where it's going from. And I just want people to try to support each other and keep this in mind as you're going through your workplace and you're setting demands and asking for reports and doing all these things. Everyone's scared. We don't know where the economy is going. We don't know all of the freaking tariff BS this week. Like, there's real shit. That's only one piece of it. People are being sent to other countries. Like, people who've paid money for this country are leaving. That's going to affect the bottom line economy. I want people to pay attention and make sure that they know all of these things so that they can pay attention to what they potentially have some control over and do something.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you all so much for listening. This is Katee Van Horn.
And this is Jackye Clayton. Bye.
Bye.